artists a lot of times are attached to the drama. Life as an artist. There's rumors going around you won't make any money. To make any money at all, I would have to either teach or do some sort of graphic design. $50,000 on murals alone last year. What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the I Cough Art podcast, the Fart Podcast. Today we are debunking the starving artist myth. We've been talking a lot about money the past couple episodes, and I hate to be too much on the financial side, but if we're going to quit our full-time jobs to pursue our creative passions and create new careers for ourselves that are based around our creativity, we have to cover our bases. We got to get our finances in order, and that could be boring, not so sexy, and maybe even stressful. But it is not for naught. We have to keep the end goal in sight, and today I want to talk about a concept that has been kind of a norm in society, at least in my upbringing. I have believed in what people have told me about the art career, life as an artist. There's rumors going around that you won't make any money. And I believed that my whole life. And, I think it was one of the biggest reasons that I drug my feet into this career in the first place. I was like, I love art. It's one of my favorite things to do with my time, but I don't know if I love it enough to struggle. I always have wanted to be comfortable. I have always wanted to make money my whole life. It hasn't been my primary focus. I wasn't willing to sacrifice all the other things in life in order to make money. Being rich wasn't my main objective. But I came from a scarcity mindset around money. I thought we were poor growing up. We weren't really, but I thought so. And so I wanted to make enough money to be comfortable and to not have to worry about paying the bills or stressing over finances, which my family often did. So much of my childhood, I actually wanted to be a dentist. I was like, doctors make a lot of money, and dentists are kind of like doctors that don't have to deal with all the gore. All my mentors, from grade school to college, always told me that if I wanted to pursue my art, I would have to accept being poor. And to make any money at all, I would have to either teach or do some sort of graphic design, basically be an employee for an institution in art. And I'm very grateful for the confidence that these mentors gave me with my skills and for encouraging me to keep creating throughout my life. But this mindset only held me back. Luckily, the universe corrected this misguidance by giving me some early financial victories through my art. I sold my first piece of art when I was 15 years old. I was participating in the annual Sketch Day in Jeff City, Missouri, and a lawyer happened to walk up to me as I was sketching the courthouse and offered to buy the pencil sketch I was working on before it was even done. He ended up paying me $120 for that drawing. That's pretty good for a day's work for a 15-year-old. And later in high school, I started doing commissions. I was contracted by the local newspaper to draw some portraits of some exceptional student athletes. I also did quite a few dog portraits and just some other random portrait commissions from family friends. I was literally being paid to be in art class. I'm not bragging. The income was literally not sustainable to actually make a career off of. Like, the amount of hours that I was putting into these drawings was not equivalent to what I was getting paid. It was basically like minimum wage. But it was just enough to slightly shift my mindset and just convince me that maybe a career in art was actually possible. I still had plenty of doubts, though. I was worried about financial security, and I definitely was not in an abundance mindset yet. Until I read this book, Real Artists Don't Starve, by Jeff Goins. This book challenges the notion that artists have to struggle and suffer to be successful. It's just not true. Sorry. I know a lot of artists do that. I think to the extent of even almost fetishizing, like I think artists are often attached, and I think they're conditioned this way. It's not their fault. But I think artists a lot of times are attached to the drama that comes with being an artist. They've been taught and trained and conditioned that an artist has to suffer or struggle. It's a part of the process. I mean, you look at like Basquiat, Kurt Cobain. These people were really tormented inside, and I'm not saying artists aren't tormented. I can testify to this. I've got my own psychological baggage and spiritual demons. But that's not necessary. We don't have to create from that space. And we also, for sure, certainly don't have to be poor. I mean, Cobain made a lot of money, I'm sure. I don't know the exact amount. Basquiat was selling paintings for 5 figures on the regular. That doesn't mean he knew how to handle that money. That's a different story entirely. Look, this book was just super helpful in convincing me that not only could I make a living off of my art, but I could thrive off of my art. It kind of blew the lid off of the ceiling that I had for myself of how much money I could make with my BFA in art. The book explores the idea that artists can thrive in their creative pursuits by adopting a different mindset and implementing practical strategies. Goins emphasizes the importance of treating art like a business and embracing the entrepreneurial spirit, focusing on finding and serving a target audience. He debunks the myth of the starving artist and provides plenty of examples of artists throughout history who have both been very creative and very financially successful. The example that comes to mind that he gives is Michelangelo. Everybody knows Michelangelo, Renaissance painter, sculptor, the artist behind the Sistine Chapel, the sculpture David. You know him. It's estimated that he is worth approximately $5 million today. And back in his time, his average annual earnings were like 40 times the average Florentine salary. He was paid 3,000 ducats, however you say it, to paint the Sistine Chapel, which is approximately $600,000. Granted, it took him 4 years, and I doubt he was working 40-hour weeks. He was probably working at least double that. But still, making $150,000 a year, even working double time, he was still making close to what, like $40 an hour? That's not starving, I promise. Especially because he didn't have a car loan to pay off. He probably didn't have Amazon to spend all of his money on. So like, the dude was crushing it. And at the end of this video, I will give you a handful of modern artists that are also thriving. Stay tuned for that. On with the summary. Jeff Goins in this book encourages artists to leverage their unique skills and abilities to market themselves effectively and to create multiple sources of income. We'll discuss the varieties of income sources that artists can pursue in a later episode. But just off the top of my head, you could do murals. That's my main source of income. Large sculptures, brand design, event posters, live painting demonstrations, reproductions such as prints, custom commissions, etc. The book provides practical advice for how to create a thriving career in art, including tips on pricing artwork, building a personal brand, networking, and adapting to changing market trends. Goins emphasizes the importance of perseverance, discipline, and continuous learning in the pursuit of artistic success. This is huge. Just because you can be prosperous in a creative career doesn't mean it's easy. It's not for the faint of heart. You have to really hustle. Okay? Look, the bottom line is Real Artists Don't Starve is a great book for you to read if you are an aspiring artist and you want to make your creativity your career. I promise you, this book will inspire you to believe in your creative abilities, embrace your value, and thrive in your chosen artistic endeavors. And if it doesn't, well, then your money back guarantee. But just know that this podcast is free. And if you've already read it, or you want another book and haven't read Art, Money, Success by Maria Brophy, it's a similar motivational book that will help convince you of abundance mindset when pursuing an art career. She does a really good job of getting the nitty-gritty details of the art career, like finding gallery representation, how to promote your work, pricing, stuff like that. So definitely check out Maria Brophy's book. She talks about her husband Drew Brophy's career, and he's done very well for himself as well. And while we're talking about valuable resources on this topic of busting the myth of the starving artist, I want to give a shout out to Andrea Earhart, creator of the Artist Academy, and author of the book Mural Money. I actually haven't read her book, but I've heard many of the excerpts in her podcast, and I do plan to read her book eventually, but I mostly listen to her podcast. I came across her podcast well after I had already adopted this mindset that art could actually increase the ceiling of my financial future, but I still wasn't sure how I was going to do it. I had a pretty good idea that murals were going to be the answer, but I hadn't really established myself as a muralist when I discovered her. I had done a few murals. I'd gotten paid for murals, but I was kind of distracted. I didn't know if I wanted to spend more time in the studio, making videos for YouTube, stuff like that. Then I started listening to her podcast, and I'm like, what am I doing? I need to get on the mural game. This is where the money's at. If you're a painter, come on. We'll talk about that probably in the next episode. But shouts to Andrea. If you don't know about her, check her out. Artist Academy podcast. Very motivational. Just do it. And now, I'm going to tell you some modern day examples of artists that are not only not starving, but are killing it in a financial aspect. And they're also making great art. They're not selling out, if you know what I mean. Like, one doesn't mean the other. Maybe that's a whole argument. If you disagree, leave a comment below. You might want to wait until I list these artists because there's some heavy hitters. First, David Cho. David Cho took a different approach. He has sold a lot of artwork, originals, prints, stuff like that. So he's made a lot of money the traditional way off of his art. But he's also a muralist. And he is especially known for his work with the Facebook headquarters. So instead of accepting a one-time payment, a big fat paycheck from Facebook would be one of the dominant social media platforms in the world, he instead opted for a percentage of their stock. And that paid handsomely. David Cho is now worth over $300 million. And he's a painter. The hell? Super creative guy too. Like, honestly, one of the most creative people I follow. Insane mind. Literally insane, but also very inspiring. His work is crazy. He's wild. Successful financially, super creative. Next, British artist Damien Hirst. You might have heard of him before. He's worth $384 million. Damn! And he's pretty much a fine artist now. He was a street artist, has done a lot of really bizarre shit. Crushing it. You might have heard of Jeff Goins. He's a little controversial. People think he's definitely a sellout. And, he's got like a factory of other artists that are basically creating his ideas for him. Whatever. Say what you want. He's a goddamn businessman. And he's very financially successful. I don't know what to tell you. $400 million, that's his net worth. Loaded. And these are just visual artists. If you're a musician, I think the ceiling's even higher. Why not? Music's great. It hits you right in the soul. Visual art does that too in a way, but man, there's something about music that just fucking carries you. You know what I'm saying? I wish I could do music. I think music is a little riskier. But hey, higher risk, higher reward. Look at Madonna. $850 million. That's what she's worth. Holy shit, girl, get it. And what about Paul McCartney? The Beatle, $1.2 billion. But billion. Damn. But guess what? That Beatle, not even half of Hova, Jay-Z. He's worth $2.5 billion. He ain't hungry. So I hope those numbers are inspiring, and not that we can expect ourselves to be on the level of Jay-Z, right? Especially if we're just painting dogs, painting logos on the side of a building, you know what I mean? But shoot for the moon, baby. Even if you miss, you'll land among the stars. I want to leave you with this. While pursuing an art career may make you millions, and I plan to do so, it's important to note, choosing an art career for financial gain alone is dumb. It's not going to work. In order to see abundance in your creative career, your heart has to be in it. It needs to be your passion. Financial success through art is going to take hustle, grit, determination, and perseverance, because this path will not be easy. I made over $50,000 on murals alone last year, and really that was just over the period of a cumulative 4 or 5 months. But believe me, I busted my ass. And I'm not just talking about the hours and sweat I put into those mural projects. I'm talking about the several years, the multiple decades of hard work that it took to develop the skills to even be qualified to paint those murals. And I would not have been able to accomplish any of that if I didn't have the deep desire to create. Painting murals is one of my biggest passions. I love it. I love creating large scale. Painting something bigger than myself is badass. It's impressive to me. It's impressive to other people. That's motivating. I don't care. It's a very exciting process, and I'm motivated by the challenge. Also, creating in public is super fun. People walking by, seeing you create, just being like, that's dope, bro. That's pretty motivating to keep going. You don't fatigue as easily when you just have that constant stimulus of reaffirmation that you're doing a good job. Doesn't hurt. I feel fulfilled when I'm painting murals. I thoroughly enjoy it. And it's a lucrative business. I do feel super fulfilled when I'm painting murals. In fact, oftentimes when I lose myself in the flow of the process, I find myself dancing with my grandmas. And what that means is I'm so tapped into the flow that I feel the presence of my deceased loved ones with me. That's maybe a woo-woo and it's hard to comprehend, and we'll get into that a lot more in future episodes, but aligning with my spiritual self is absolutely a part of the process, so it's not just about making money. But I will say, I think that this drive and this passion that I have for art is the real reason why making a mint is possible. Because when you align your career and your lifestyle with your spirit and your passions, the universe will reinforce you with opportunities, with financial abundance. There is no limit. I promise you that. Read these books for more motivation. I hope this chat has inspired you. Thanks for tuning in.